And we've partnered with a lot of great people like Dennis with the Show Starts Now Studios, with Brent at Rack 59, Vicky at Project 3810 and DD Audio. We have some other folks in here that have been helpful as volunteers. I see Rob in the audience, and there's some other folks that have been extremely helpful in facilitating this, like Ryan. Additionally, I'd like to thank Insperity for helping cater the food tonight. Josh, you guys are always great, and it's wonderful that you come together and bring people around a meal that they can share and discuss all the great things of life with. I'd be remiss not to mention Chris and Deep Fork Technology. Chris is our faithful director, and it's such a pleasure to have you helping us put these events on monthly, and it's a pleasure to have you on the team. And we'd also like to thank Charn Langford, Ashley Hart, and all those other people that have helped make this possible. So give you guys a big a round of applause. Anyone else that's interested in helping out and volunteering, we're always looking for people that can help drum up some attention and help us put this on, because we're a bunch of volunteers, and it's always great. It takes a village, you know. So, did you guys have a good Mother's Day?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. I love hearing that. So, obviously, it's that time of the year where we like to celebrate Mom, and it's also that time of the month where we like to celebrate the female founders. And similar to Mother's Day, you know, this isn't just one day or 1 month that's dedicated, but this is just a special time that we like to celebrate these awesome ladies that are out doing these wonderful things. And it's just a great time to pause and reflect and give them some admiration for the things that they're doing 365 days a year. So this is our chance to really honor those other 364 days that you guys are out there killing it. You guys stand out in the crowd because of your ideas, your passion, your perseverance, and your can-do attitudes. And these are the type of women that anyone would want on their team, not just on it, but leading their team. And so we are one of about 200 Startup Grind events that are happening this month, where we're celebrating the wonderful women in the world and all of the beautiful things that they're accomplishing. And so with that, we are absolutely thrilled and honored to have with us today a very special woman, Roberson.
Thanks.
So Robin, I've got a few things to give us a little bit of an introduction on your bio. You started out at the Washington Post, then you started your own automotive consulting firm, and then you transitioned to co-founding and leading WeGoLook. You're a board member with Creative Oklahoma, the Women's President's Organization, on the board of Bank First, and the YMCA of Greater Oklahoma City. So you obviously keep yourself quite busy, and we understand that when you co-founded WeGoLook, sometimes people are having difficulty explaining how this, but maybe the easiest way is it's the Uber of inspections, right?
It can be. It can be. And I will explain what it is, and I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate it, especially among other entrepreneurs and people who are trying to make all these things happen here in Oklahoma City. It's fantastic. So thank you. So WeGoLook, it's basically an on-demand field services platform that has over 47,000 independent contractors who are called lookers, and they are dispatched very similarly to Uber by leveraging technology, and they capture data in the form of photos and video, different types of working demonstration. So very much an inspection platform, but it's very dynamic, so it can capture whether it's heavy equipment, automotive, property, so it's quite agile. So it is very much like the Uber of inspections, for sure.
Great, great. So maybe you can give us a little bit of background on how you evolved from your early career to where you are today.
I'm happy to, because it sounded so simple when he read it on the paper. Sure. So I would say that the inspiration for being an entrepreneur started when I was in second grade, and I read the word entrepreneur as part of a spelling bee contest, and I was fascinated with it because I didn't know what it meant, nor could I pronounce it. And was telling Alex earlier, I'm originally from western Oklahoma, a small town called Gracemont, which is over by Anadarko, which is over by Chickasha. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of location relevance there. But so my purview of the world was very small, and kind of seeing, of course, farmers are entrepreneurs. You don't really think of that when you're a farmer, but they very much are. And I think, I was just very fascinated. I was like, wow, people can like do these things. And that was, back when Fort Cobb Lake was the big body of water for me. And we were just talking about the talent here in Oklahoma City and things like that. But very much that was when I started thinking about people who could do things, I started making yarn belts on the playground and quickly learned that my friends, if I kind of encouraged them to help me, I could make more very quickly and sell more. And then the principal shut us down, but I had caught the bug. I was very excited about it. And, was a hard worker from a very early age, mostly because I had to be. We didn't have a lot of money, and so if I wanted Reeboks, I'd have to go earn the money for it. But so I did a lot of work. I worked at my first day, and worked at Mazzio's. I worked at Pizza Hut. I worked at other people were doing the talent shows at school, and I was working.
Was it one of the Mazzio's with the buffets?
Yes, it was in Anadarko, and it was amazing. But and I was just very hooked on working a lot, which probably isn't healthy for a teenager, but for me that was just how I was wired. And then when I was in college, I had my first son. He was here earlier and had to go help a friend, but that was my college education. There he went. But I was very inspired to start working harder, and I got a job with the Washington Post, and they had several different cable companies around, radio stations there, and different media. And that's where I started in sales, actually.
Sales
which
is
was
always
fantastic.
an interesting field, because they don't typically teach that in traditional academic settings. So it's something that it's the only money-making arm of a company, but it's also something that no one's really teaching you how to do other than getting out there and doing it yourself.
You're exactly right. It's very interesting. But I was armed with a VHS set tape course. They went home and watched it, and then they stuck me out on the streets, and it was fantastic. I learned quickly that I could earn commission based on what I wanted to do. But what I learned, and I really go back to that a lot, because I tried to learn everything I could about my customers. Mostly because I was very interested in it. I was fascinated by business, but I really wanted to find out, what was their highest grossing product, and what could they sell more of, and like really trying to help them more, not just with an advertising campaign. So I started kind of helping everybody with a whole plan. But this whole time, I didn't realize this, but I was getting my own education for later of learning more and more, everything I could about my customer. So I would highly encourage everyone here, don't just look at your customer in the view of what you're trying to share with them, but learn everything you can about them, because you might be surprised at the other things you can find out that actually help you with that customer later. But I think that really helped me the most was actually my entire sales career, and that was very good for me. And then I had my husband passed away, and I had felt like I needed to have a little bit more time, and I just started kind of playing around with different things, and I've had several companies, some successful, some not successful, but I think that's part of the journey. So my path is very different. It was never, oh hey, I'm gonna be here. Mine was extremely this, and it was just really based on what I felt here and what I was able to do.
That's great. And I'm sure we look forward to you sharing some of your experiences with the successes and the failures with us as we develop this conversation. Where did you study? Did you go to university or?
Yeah, so I'm always very transparent. I think that's the best way to be. But I had a basketball scholarship. Then I did have my son that walked out the door. And I had the choice I was working full-time, and I was working, of course, full-time, and going to school, and I couldn't do it all, not with a new baby. And so I really had to choose two of those things, and obviously I had to pay the bills, and then I chose him. And so I actually did not graduate from college, even though I had graduated at the top of my class in high school, and school was always I loved school. It was easy for me, but I couldn't at the time. So I didn't graduate. So I kind of look at the sales role in working with all my customers. And of course, I went to different training, and I was always trying to read things, and I was trying to, and I encourage everyone to continue learning everything that you can all the time. Don't become stale. So, I mean, you were talking about it, like, you can, especially now with the internet, you can learn anything that you want to. And so I just kind of did that. I found a couple of mentors and kind of worked alongside that, and I did very well with the Washington Post. I was probably more naive than stubborn at the time, and I won a couple of national sales contests, and I was totally hooked, and I loved it.
That's great. Well, your experience becoming a mother actually reminded me of one of the conversations I had with one of our guests earlier, who's actually working together an idea to help moms re-enter the workforce and remain in the workforce. So maybe we can connect you two after the discussion.
I'm happy to.
And so these work experiences certainly molded a bit of Robin as you were starting your company. What was the transition like going from the automotive consulting firm, the Washington Post, and into co-founding WeGoLook?
So the automotive consulting actually was fantastic also for me, because I was introduced to different CRM tools. I had to learn more about the internet. I had some clients that, this of course is aging me, but they didn't even have websites, right? And so I felt like it was on me to kind of help them. And so I had to learn about it. Also, you can't go share information with your clients if you don't understand it. And so when I started really understanding all these different aspects and like cookies and everything, I was like, whoa, the internet is like your window to the whole world, and it's free. and these organic leads of people this was before all the chat bots and all the automation, and I was like, these are super hot leads, and you've got to learn how to transform these. And so all of that experience helped me when I had a friend that was looking at a high-end projector on eBay and said, I wish I had someone to go look at this. And this is 10 years ago, this is in 2009, and everybody was buying on eBay, and I did some research, and I couldn't find anybody that was doing that. And I was like, people need this. People need to be able to go out and validate something without, if you can't see it, you've got to verify it. And the thought just kept going on through my mind, and I'd had a couple of really bad online dating experiences, and I was thinking, you could do a lot with your grandma in a nursing home. I was like thinking of all these things that you could do with this contingent workforce, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's when I was like, okay, what would I need to do? Because I felt like it was really helping people just like us. I built it initially just for individual consumers, just like us. And I was like, how do I go about that? And so once I kind of knew where I wanted to go, I was like, okay, here's, and I would suggest that to everyone here is, what is your outcome? Focus on your outcome. Sometimes you get stuck in this gray area of focusing on all this stuff, but if you look at this here, like where you want to go, what would it take for you to get there? I think that really helped me, because I knew I had to have a workforce, I knew I had to have a platform, and I knew I had to have customers, and that's all I knew.
So this was 2009?
10 years ago.
When you started?
Less gray hairs ago, yes.
And
yes.
The gig economy wasn't really even quite a thing at that point. It was just kind of booming, and you were kind of at the bleeding edge of that.
Yeah.
Did that help? Do you think it was the right timing for WeGoLook? Do you think that the market helped with this gig economy of lookers and helped WeGoLook succeed, or?
That's a great question. I think 2009 was difficult for anyone to kind of start anything the way that just the economy was, but I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh, I didn't let those things kind of get in my way. Now, a couple of years later, when you started hearing more about Uber and these different ways to do things, and TaskRabbit was really the first one that I heard of, and that's where there were a lot of similarities. Of course, they called them rabbits back then; they're taskers now. But yeah, so it was. It definitely helped that I already had established a community and had established a business process and had success with some orders coming through the platform the way they were supposed to. But it was still it was very nominal. It literally took several years to get any kind of traction in. You talk about the startup grind. It is a grind, and it is an everyday. And it's like being on a bicycle that you just don't ever feel like you're going anywhere, and it's over and over and over. And then finally one day, like you move a little bit, and you're like, oh, and then another day you move here. But that's part of it, right?
Yeah. Did your vision evolve as you continue to grind through it?
Oh,
How
yeah.
so?
Absolutely. Well, my biggest vision evolved when I was so excited after I came out of beta, December 2010, and I had built everything for eBay, right?
Okay.
I was built on speed. I was built on being able to capture any kind of data on any kind of asset. I was like, oh, eBay will love this. They'll just buy this. They'll love it. So I pretended like I had a meeting out there. I contacted the right person. I flew out there, and they literally told me, they were like, you're too small. You can't scale your platform. You don't have any business like numbers, like history. And they were right. Everything they said was right. And so I came back home for a couple of days, and I was a little depressed about it because I was so gung-ho about it. But that's when I was like, okay, I've got to sit back and kind of pivot and focus. And started thinking, I was spreading myself too thin. I was focused horizontally versus what I would say vertically, which is why I have this necklace here, which although it doesn't help me all the time, it does try to keep me on track. But you've got to, that's when I started focusing on just segments and doing some SEO, guerrilla marketing. There were terrible articles. They weren't well written, but they got the job done, right? I was able to kind of optimize
Done
and
is
get
better
there.
than perfect.
Exactly. And I try to tell people that all the time. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work. And so now when you start executing with your customers, that's when you want perfection, right? But you got to get the customers. You've got to figure out how to get to that stage. And so it wasn't pretty, but it worked.
What other types of stumbling blocks did you run into as you were building up the company?
So when I decided to pivot and go more on the B2B side, and again, this was all just based on perception. I had thought that these great big companies all had their act together and they really knew what they were doing. And now you find out most of them have a lot of legacy technology, and they don't really, like, there's no consistency across the board. And when I realized we started doing some work for a very large company, and I could just do some cookie cutter, like the same type of look over and over, but each bank kind of wanted a little different piece on the technology, and I had people tell me, oh, no, you can't offer that to them. You have to just say, here's what we have, and that's what you can order. And I was like, no. I want to customize it for everybody. I want them to only pay for the data that they want to capture, and I want this to be personalized. And it needs to look good. It needs to, not be one of these hand-scribbled, sideways PDF things that they are used to receiving. And I got a lot of feedback on that of, that's expensive, you can't do that. And then when I started to incorporate video into the app, oh, you can't transfer video files in an app to the system. Yeah, you can. We figured it out. But you have all these people that will say, take an easier path because they don't want to do the work. Then you need to find somebody who can do the work, right? You need to find somebody who can help you, because I think just about anything out there right now is possible with technology. So I would just encourage everyone here, if you are getting some feedback that you don't feel is right in your gut, then you need to be talking to some other people for sure. So I would say that was some stumbling blocks there. And then finding the right people. I spent way too much money on technology because I didn't know enough about it. It's very, very expensive. Anyone here has tried to build anything or integrate anything, that was my biggest cost. And so trying to learn more about that, I think, is important, so you can understand what people are trying to tell you and make sure that you're on the same page. So I think communication is also important, and expectations, but definitely some small pieces there of not really knowing what I was doing, but trying to move forward. So there, a lot of failures, a lot of early learning curves, still learning curves, but
I think setting expectations is probably a great piece for us to dive in on a little bit that I'm sure would resonate with everyone here. Do you have any tricks that you would recommend for setting expectations, or things that maybe work better for you that that maybe you can share with the rest of the group?
Sure. So, and I'm fortunate enough to be married to a project manager now who's really good at this. But back in the day, I thought that just being able to communicate with someone, even if you lay it out very well and what you feel like is like for maybe a fifth grader to understand, here's what I need. Some people need it in a very specific type of scoping document with specific timelines. And understanding that and really there's just you have to be able to communicate with the development team who is not used to the business side, and I wasn't used to the development side. And so I don't understand what it takes to build code and do those kind of things. And so you have two people speaking different language, so you have to have a very, very accurate, I think, scoping document is important. I didn't know that. I didn't know what a scoping document was for 2 years. That would have saved me a lot of time. But yeah.
A little more time up front saves you a little bit more time in the long run.
And money, yes.
And in money, yes,
Yes.
very important. So over those 10 years, WeGoLook grew to be a pretty big company. What was that scale like, and how was that hiring process? What kind of things leading up to the acquisition, and what did you learn from those?
Oh gosh. Well, it was amazingly fun. It was also amazingly stressful, but it was in a very fun way. We grew pretty rapidly. We picked up some very large contracts and had to build the technology, had to be compliant. There are all these different things you have to do. Then you have to make sure that the independent contractors knew what they were expected of them and have that quality assurance control piece in. Make sure that your customers were onboarded and understood. That was another big piece is, sure, people once you get into a big organization, how do you get them to place orders, and how do you get them to how do you become part of that process? That's a whole nother obstacle to overcome, right? You may have a great product, but if they don't understand it or it doesn't get conveyed everywhere, that can be a problem. But just going back to your question, the scaling, I'm just very fortunate. It's not about me, it's about my team. And I had some amazing team members that were able to come in. The previous COO, Kenneth Knoll, from I2E, of course, also had a lot of background there, but he was able to come in and help a lot with some pieces that I didn't know. So I look at this very much as being like a basketball coach. When you start really building a team, in the early days, it was just myself, right, and a programmer. That was great. Then it was like you bring on an employee, you bring on another employee, you get to have Taco Tuesday and you can still afford it for everybody. And then you start needing to grow, and then you start really looking at your team and figuring out what pieces are missing on your team and what strengths other people bring, and you bring them up to the top and you really kind of work to empower them. That's a big key. I see people that I talk to that are very, when you're talking about, well, here's my idea, and I'm going to launch it after this happens, and it's going to be this, this, and this, and they're very steadfast. And I think you have to have the ability to pivot as well
Like in
as part of
basketball?
Yes, just as basketball. But to answer your question, it's really very much about having the right kind of team that you can put some structure in place so that you want to keep your culture a certain way as you scale. And then knowing what that ramp-up process looks like, almost kind of like a contingency plan, but, having everything ready, knowing what the critical players are, and that was really fun to kind of figure out. And we didn't make the right decisions all the time. I would say hiring people was something that I wasn't perfect at, and I probably never will be, because, people are just people, but that's how that went.
Yeah, so what was it like going through an acquisition? I don't think a lot of us have been through one of those, so maybe it'd be nice to give us an insider's
Oh, and I have great follow-up for that because it was fantastic, right? It was, you go through all this work. Part of it was difficult because it's like you have this baby, right? And it starts with this little bitty baby, and then it's a little toddler, and it's running into things and falling down, and then it grows up and grows up, and then all of a sudden when you're going into an acquisition, I felt like it was like when he went to college, you like, okay, you've gotten to this point, and then you have to like kind of let it go and just trust it. And that's what I felt like. Even though I still felt like it was my baby, it wasn't anymore. And it was time for it to grow and spread and get its wings and just keep going by itself. That's how it felt. Now, there was a lot to that. Obviously, we hadn't planned on going through the acquisition. We were actually looking for a Series B round. And so had raised a Series A October 14 of a little over $3 million. And was looking for that Series B because I needed another platform, which is expensive. and that's when we started we just had people coming out of the woodwork, people from San Francisco, and we like interviewed, it was literally like 35 different VC firms, and it was fantastic. And so that was very time consuming. So if you're wanting to go through an acquisition, you have to look at how much time and effort you have there as well. So you're still trying to run the business, still trying to grow the business, and you're trying to figure out who is a good fit for you as a partner. So I say all that it was fantastic, but it's not just like, oh, hey, I'm just going to sit here and it's going to happen. I'm going to just sign the paper. That doesn't happen either. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it was fantastic because it was a great sense of accomplishment. And what I was going to announce is, after a decade, that journey actually came to an end today. This morning was my last day at WeGoLook as an employee. Yeah, so that was today. But it's part of the journey.
And what can you share with the group on what's next on the plate for you?
Well, I'm in a room of people that probably understand this. When you have ideas all the time for years and years and years, you want to act on them all the time. I can just let you know that hit the ground running this afternoon already. So very excited. It was a fantastic experience going through the acquisition. It was a good partnership, but it's time to keep growing, right? It's not everything that's there. There's still more to happen, and I want all of the things that I've learned now, and take those experiences and just create something even bigger. And so that's what I feel here, and so that's what I'm going to do.
Closing one chapter and starting to write the next one.
Exactly.
So big news. Stay tuned to see
Yeah.
what's next up for Robin.
So I'm excited to share that with you guys. And I'll have another drink. No, I'm kidding.
So that's exciting. So in this transitional period, obviously you're probably evaluating some of these ideas that have come to you over the years, some of the ideas that you're facing now and looking at moving towards the future. When you're evaluating these ideas in Oklahoma City and yourself and the market, what types of things are you looking for that you can share? What types of things would you recommend people to check off their list maybe as they're thinking about, hey, I've got an idea myself. What kind of things do I need to look at?
Sure. Well, I'm just going to speak again kind of from my experience. But for me, as I've kind of evolved along with this process as well, I've become really passionate about InsurTech and platform partners and how exciting it is to see how all these different companies can connect and how everything can actually come together in a single platform. And that has just been really exciting for me. So what I am hopeful to do is in that kind of space. But I would say, so with that, I would say, what does make you tick? What inspires you? What is really exciting? I think there are so many people I meet that have such great passion, and they have that vision and that belief, right? You've got to have all of it. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you can't be an entrepreneur if you've got one thing that you're excited about. You have to have it all, I think, to just really keep after it and keep going. And so I would say make sure that it's something you feel very confident in. And if you don't feel confident, you don't have to. I didn't feel confident about WeGoLook until, I didn't. I was like at about 85%, 90% confidence rating for a while. But then I realized it wasn't the confidence rating in actually WeGoLook, it was the confidence rating in myself leading WeGoLook. And so that's something I try to share with everyone is to, when you find that confidence in yourself, you can move forward even more so with your idea and with your plan. But so find something that you're passionate about. There are some awesome resources here. I think this is fantastic. I'm seeing more and more different groups that are supporting entrepreneurs. And, you know, you see all the co-working space. You see a lot of people. There's so much synergy there. And, you know, if you haven't been to any of them, I highly suggest you just go check them out and see all the different people that are working out of them and meet them. Go up and introduce yourself. Obviously, we have great resources with the ITE. Right now, there's like basically double money on a couple of the programs, FYI. Google's always got, especially for women, they've got these contests all the time. If you put alerts out for some of these and apply for these, you have a really great chance. One thing I would say in Oklahoma, people always go, "You do this out of Oklahoma?" You know what? You can be like the big fish in a little pond here. You don't have people just lining up out the door that you're competing with like you do out in Silicon Valley or down in Austin, or, you know, there's something to be said for that. You may not have as many resources, but you don't have as much competition either. So you've got to figure out how to make yourself stand out. And you've got to go out and network. And that was one thing I wasn't super good at in the beginning because you're just working all the time. But you've got 1 million cups. You have Skybridge. You have all these, there's all these different, this is a great way to network, right? And then help and support each other. If you see something that is a great opportunity, share it with your friends. Don't think, oh gosh, if I share it with them, it's not going to happen for me. You start sharing it with everybody, that stuff comes back around. And everybody here becomes more successful, and they start paying more attention to Oklahoma City and Tulsa and Oklahoma. By golly. And all the counties around us.
Oklahoma area.
Yes, let's just keep going. So I think there's a lot to be said for being here in Oklahoma City.
That's great. And we talked a little bit about how there's some real hard work that you get out of the rural parts of the state as well.
Yes.
And how there's a lot of benefits to coming from a rural part of the state. What other types of things do you see as value in growing a business in Oklahoma, or types of opportunities that Oklahoma could improve on to be more of a destination for entrepreneurs?
The destination for entrepreneurs, I think we would have to definitely have some more state support. Now, I will say the state has some great incentives for large companies who want to relocate here. Not so much as far as programs for people who are established or already spending their money, but there are programs there, and you can take advantage of them. So I think that that's something that, as a group, if we're a little bit more vocal, we can ask for that, right? And getting some more support from the state. But obviously, I mean, we all know we have a low cost of living here. The work ethic overall is fantastic. I also would say that we have a lot of call center experience here, so you can get very good professional speaking employees at a pretty decent rate. It really depends on what your vision is or what your idea or your business is. But there are, if you look, I feel like Oklahoma has just a nice little pool of all kinds of talent. And of course, if you can't, then get on LinkedIn, become a thought leader here in Oklahoma City. Someone gave me that advice a couple of years ago, and I was like, a thought leader? What am I gonna help people with? And now I'm on like global insurtech in the world, like constantly, because this is kind of a new thing is insurtech. But after meeting all the people and sharing ideas that are relevant to your space. And so I highly recommend that to everybody here too, to kind of start thinking about what kind of content you could put out. And it's just like being an entrepreneur. It takes a little while to generate any kind of traction, but that will help you greatly. And people will all of a sudden start sending you messages, and you'll have people wanting to send you business. That's great.
So become a thought leader. That's
Yes,
great.
please.
Before we jump into the question and answers portion, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the group, or anything that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I would like to share maybe just a couple of thoughts, and this is always part of the, as I continue to grow as a person and through this experience that I want to share with you guys that I wish I had known earlier. and at different stages. But one of them would be to definitely shed the weight. And when I say shed the weight, I'm not talking about this, although I could use that. It's the WAIT. So what are you waiting for, right? Are you waiting for your idea? Are you waiting for next week? Are you waiting for somebody else to give you validation? What are you waiting on? Sometimes you just have to even if it's the wrong step, at least you're making a step. So I talk to some people sometimes, they're like, well, I've got this idea, and I'm like, well, let's figure out what that first step is and stop waiting, right? And so I would wait on some things because I wasn't confident in just trying it. And it's okay to fail. What's going to happen, right? If you're failing, just don't worry about it. You can't let that even affect you. When eBay told me that, literally I was upset for 2 days, and that was it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to redo this. I had another email from a very large company that was really horrible several years ago. They said, we make fun of you in our meetings because you're always commenting on, it was very bullyish. It's from a very large company. And I was upset. I was upset for a whole day. I was like, are you kidding me? That motivated me more than, I was like, oh, time out, right? You guys just raised $40 million and you're sending me that, and I am, anyway. They had a wine bar too. I read about it. But then the other thing I would say that I learned through this journey is because I kind of had my identity wrapped up in WeGoLook. I did. I was way too, that's me, because I created it. I felt like that was who I was. And I have to just stress that your company is not who you are. And when somebody told me, I'm going to write your obituary about you, and guess what? WeGoLook's not going to be in it. It's not. And when that was told to me, I was like, oh, that's, and I just would just stress to keep your priorities in yourself kind of separate. Does that make sense at all? And I wish I had learned that earlier, because I was way too wrapped up into the WeGoLook Robin identity. And I wish I hadn't been.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for being real. Thank you for being transparent. Thank you for sharing all of these experiences that you've had with those of us that may be just starting out on our journeys, or might be going through some similar experiences, maybe at a different scale or a different time in the trajectory of a startup or of a company. So
sure, I'm happy to. I hope it was helpful to I'm always hopeful of just one person.
Great content. And at this point, I'd love to open up the floor. If anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask Robin, we'd love to get you plugged in. Ryan, yes.
What were some of the unique struggles with having a two-sided platform starting out for WeGoLook, and how did you navigate those with the supply and demand that you needed both of? How did you handle that?
And if you don't mind repeating it.
Yeah, so the question was, and thanks for the question, was what were some of the struggles of having two-sided platform, right? So I had lookers, I had the independent contractors that you have to keep happy and try to keep them engaged, and then you have the need for customers to place orders on the other side. Very much the chicken and the egg question, which is always the fun one that I've had lots and lots. I had to start with making sure that I had enough contractors so that when I did get the first order, I'd be able to fill it pretty easily. So I spent about the first year recruiting, mobile notaries, process servers, field inspectors, people that were out mobile in the field, so that I would have them. But I signed them up under the premise of another houselookers.net. Property inspection. So I kind of created a faux landing page where I could kind of harvest that data and let them know that it was coming soon, so they weren't expecting business right away. And then, frankly, there was a lot of really great press as the gig economy, the sharing economy, that those terms came around, and we would just get a plethora of applications. And then you would get people going, I have not had a look. I have not had an order. And so then we became very focused on, okay, how do we manage all this? And it was really around the algorithm that we built around how do we solicit that job out. And so we let people know that we had like a pro team, you're based on geography, and that you could, based on your radius, your skill set, that you have in your profile, just all different kinds of things like that. But frankly, we were fairly lucky because we would tell people, we were upfront with people that there might not be enough, like a lot in their area. So if somebody was in LA, we had 900 people in LA already. So, that part was good. And then we ended up making the onboarding process really difficult because we only wanted people that were very serious about it. And so that whole process also went through an evolution, right? So, but it worked. It was a lot of trial and error, and then we made it happen that way. Mm-hmm.
Great. I think I saw another hand out here.
Oh, yeah, I'll
Yes,
ask
Victor?
this. I always get different contradictory answers on this. So one of the questions I have is to partner or not to partner, right? Some say it's good to have another partner when you start out. Others say, go out on your own. The other thing, which is probably too late for me now, is do you start a company when you still have a job, or do you quit your company and focus on the job? What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm going to answer your second question first. I don't think it's ever too late to start anything. And I would also say that if you have to support yourself because you don't have the funds, well, absolutely keep your job. I was working a lot of extra hours when I had my automotive consulting company until I finally made that decision to say, okay, I've got to focus 100%. But it was a ramp up for me too because I had to have the income. And so absolutely, if you have to work both jobs, that's fine. That's why you do live under a rock, and maybe you haven't seen the latest, Game of Thrones episode. Like, there's those things that happen that you get to weigh. As far as a partner or not to partner, that would be something I would be happy to talk to you. Like, I'd have to know more about what your company is. If you're looking in the beginning for a partner, and they can bring a lot of qualities that you don't have, again, it's that team mentality. I say if you can multiply your efforts versus duplicate your efforts, and you can scale yourself somehow, and you can get rid of some of the tasks that are maybe bogging you down. I'm not sure what your situation is,
Yeah.
but
I was just curious because
yeah.
I think I heard you say you had a partner when you started, right?
Yes, I had several silent partners,
Right.
and I had to have some money, but I ended up hiring. So I didn't have what I would call my business partner now at the beginning. My business partner, who I have, who now obviously we've been together for several years, working as a team. But that was just based on, again, we have very different skill sets, but they blend very well together. And he and I can get a whole lot done, more so ever than I could by myself. And so I'm willing to, a lot of people, I think a lot of people look at it more of like, well, I don't want to give up half, or I don't want to give up this or that, or I don't want to, like, what about my ideas? You give up half of what? If you could make that much bigger, who cares, right? And you're going to have more ideas from other people. But there's also some things that you could do all by yourself. So I'd have to just know more.
Yeah, I was just curious what your path was, and it sounds like y'all complemented each other.
I very much prefer a partner because I just like to be around people, and I like to have other ideas. And I'm good at some things, but I am not just amazing at a lot of things. And so I need people here that are amazing at these things that are not good at the things I am. I just like to meet people. Yes.
Brent?
A quick question about the gig economy and the growth of it.
Yeah.
Are you finding more and more of your professional lookers are also doing other forms of gig economy, whether they're driving for Uber or Lyft or some of the other type of services? Is that becoming an industry in of itself where you've got professionals that work with several different employers as a contractor? What's that beginning to look like for you guys?
So that's been really neat to watch because the gig economy has become just, as you guys have seen, Uber and Lyft just explode over the last several years, right? And even you start talking about Airbnb and the sharing economy in general, and you've got Postmates and Grubhub and all these different, of course, Amazon's really kicking it up a notch too. But So you see, in our case, a lot of our pro team members have other gigs, or they may be retired professionals, or they may just, but we absolutely have like Uber and Lyft drivers who are also lookers. But we also had, I keep saying have had, licensed drone operators and mobile notaries, people that have very specific certifications. And that's where I really feel like the next generation of the gig economy is headed, is for professionals to be able to be dispatched at scale. There are so many different types of research that you can read talking about how many people are part of the gig economy now, and how many more, like it's like 42% of all people have participated in the gig economy. Now, participating, I don't know if that means being, earning money from it, but it's definitely moving up. So the trend is just skyrocketing. And you look at the millennials, it's all this. It's all their phone. It's very much post-mating. It's pretty interesting. So definitely, we've seen that trend, and that will, I think, definitely increase just by everything I've read and people I've talked to.
Great question. Stacy?
Yeah.
Do you ever resent the term female founder, or does it bother you when people say this is a woman-owned company or woman-led company? Would you prefer that they just say founder?
That's a great question. The question for the recording is for being identified as a female founder. So there's a couple of things. I'm really proud to be a woman, and I'm happy to be a woman. Okay, no offense, guys, but wouldn't want to be one, right?
None taken.
I also am very much about the person. I like to just be recognized for who I am and what I do, not because I'm a female. Has that helped me in my sales career get in the door? Sure. Has it hurt me in my sales career? Absolutely. Because there is still, and everybody can ignore it or not ignore it, but you go look at the insurance industry, you go look at the automotive industry, you look at the banking industry, how many females are there? Which is why I'm super excited. I love being on the board at Bank First, because I'm learning a lot about that, and they're very empowering there. But it's definitely, do I like being identified? I'm happy to be identified at any time, because I'll take any kind of publicity for your company, right? If you ever get any kind, it's good. Do I think it's right to, I think it's great, we should all support each other. I'm totally for it. But I want to support you just as much as I want to support you. And so I'm not into this, all the...
Girl boss, boss babe.
I think it's great.
Okay.
It's cool.
Okay.
Everybody can do what they want to do. Total libertarian.
Yeah.
But for me, I just, and my staff, it was very much the same way. It's all about the person. So, but you can call me whatever you want to. It's not going to bother me, but I don't think it should be just that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ashley?
I'm going to piggyback off of Stacy, being a female founder. Yeah,
Just
Which is
founder.
awesome.
Founder's fine. Just founder.
Alliteration helps,
Yeah,
it's...
Okay. So you talked about your son a lot, and have 3 kids in a business. So can you talk about and to the parents who are trying to do the grind and raise a family? How did you balance that? Because I feel like that's a
Oh gosh. Yeah. So the question is, how do you have it all, right? How do you balance it all? It's not going to happen.
No.
And I actually have 2 sons. I only mentioned that one because he was here. So sorry if the second one is watching this someday, somehow. And now I have 4 bonus kids. So altogether we have 6 kids.
Okay.
So one thing I've always heard, and this also goes back to a little bit what you're talking about, women should have it all. You should be able to work. You should be able to go to church. You should be able to volunteer at the school. You should be able to make cookies for your kids when they get home. And you're just like, I can't do it all. And you're supposed to look good, by the way. And you're supposed to put on, spend 2 hours on your makeup. No, not happening. So the balance there for me has been one I struggled with, but I would say that my personal experiences, so what I didn't tell you guys was that I didn't lose just one son's father. I lost both of them to car accidents at different times. So both of those experiences helped me go, okay, you know what? I'm so grateful for what I have, but I also am the only parent for both of those boys. So that changed my my perception of what my priorities were. And so I was this is a great example, I was at a training last week that was freaking amazing, and I loved it. And I told them I had to leave early because my son's last lacrosse game was over the weekend, and they kicked me out right then and there. And because it was really hardcore,
Okay.
right? Like, it was great. It's not a bad thing. But my point is I had to give up that amazing, which I'm going to go back, but it was amazing, an amazing event. So you have to prioritize what's good for you. You're going to miss some lacrosse games, and you're going to miss some meetings. But again, it goes back to the obituary. What's yours going to say? Maybe you look at that. 'Cause some people don't care. Some people don't mind leaving their families. Some people don't mind missing those kind of things. But you need to just prioritize what you need to, and just understand. For me, I realized that years ago, I'm going to miss them, and it's okay. But my kids have always known that that's first. And if I had to miss something, it was freaking off the chart important that I missed it.
These are all great questions. I think I
They
see another
are.
one back there. Stephen?
Yeah, you talked a little bit about transitioning from kind of task focused early on while you're starting out to empowering your team and being kind of a coach. Can you share either some of the struggles in that or some tips?
Yes.
That's a challenge.
That's a great challenge. That's a great challenge, Stephen. That is, how do you let someone else do the work that you're used to doing all the time? How do you let someone else do it? Because you feel this was not an overnight process for me. This was at least a minimum 3-month to maybe closer to 6-month where I had to really be focused and aware of this for myself, of learning that you don't need to always, you need to find somebody that you can train, and you need to spend the time giving it to them, right? You're just like, oh, it'd just be faster for me to do it. No, I'm just gonna do it right. And oh, do you know what they said? They said this, and oh, I would never have said that. You gotta let that go and go with about the 80%. You gotta find somebody that can do nobody's ever gonna do your job the way you do it. Nobody's gonna be as passionate unless you get a partner. That's good, right? And so you just gotta go with that and be okay with that and go, okay, they're gonna take care of these things, and then I'm gonna take me and I'm gonna focus on these very high level, these things. Get rid of the $50 an hour work and only focus on the $500 hour work, and when you start thinking that will help you decide what you can give to somebody else and what you need to keep, in my opinion.
I think there's a Frozen song called Let It Go.
Dude, yeah. And the other thing I would say is everyone here probably gets this, right? It's that whole, to me, people think you're crazy, you're living in this chaos, you're living in this startup grind. And to me, the insanity would be insanity of just being like this, right? So it's fun. It's fun to be an entrepreneur, and it's fun to deal with all this stuff, but know that all these things that you come across all the time, and you got to jump off the ledge and just go for it, and just hope there's something down there, like the water's deep enough. That's the fun part.
Any other questions? I think Robin will stick around a little bit afterwards if anyone wants to ask some one-on-one questions. But to wrap things up here, we had a lot of good nuggets here from you. Just want to kind of recap a couple of them. Emphasizing the expectations up front is going to save you a lot of time and money in the long term. Shed the weight, W-A-I-T. Mm-hmm. Your company is not your identity. Mm-hmm. And almost from the obituary standpoint, work yourself backwards. What do you want your story, what do you want your legacy to be, and kind of work your way towards that. So these are all great nuggets I thought that you left with us. We're so thankful for you spending your time with us. I'd like to take another moment just to thank everyone that helped make this night possible. I did not mention earlier, if you wouldn't mind, give us a shout out on social media. This month what we're doing is we're doing the hashtag SGWomen. you can also just hashtag Startup Grind OKC. If you enjoyed this, bring a friend with you next time. We love meeting new people. If there's anything that Chris or I can do for you, reach out to us. We'd love to connect you with anyone in the community. If you didn't get this chance to sign in, go ahead and do that. And don't leave yet, because we have a little gift for you. And we'd also like to do a little bit of a raffle drawing. But on behalf of the Startup OKC community, I'd love to, Startup Grind OKC community, I'd love to give you a big round of applause and thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you, I appreciate that.